Good morning. I'm Norbert Fisher, Chair of the CHES BC Executive. On behalf of the CHES BC Executive and the CHES BC Planning Committee, I would like to welcome our CHES family here in BC, across Canada, and our guests to our week-long series of webinars that the Planning Committee has put together for us. As we are all too familiar with, our pandemic restrictions do not allow us to meet in person at this time in Penticton. Fortunately, we do have technology which does allow us to Zoom together as a CHES family. With the challenges and changes that we have come through, we do see hope in the future and look forward to the time when we can all meet face to face again. It is with that hope we look forward to meeting in Whistler next year. Our webinar series theme for the week is the physical environment, creating patient-focused facilities. With the events of the past several years, fires, floods, pandemic, we have come to the realization that we need to plan and build our healthcare facilities to better prepare for future events when they happen. Our webinar sessions this week will help to prepare us for the many discussions that lie ahead as we continue to maintain and add to our existing facilities and design healthcare facilities for the future. When you visit the CHES BC website, you can download the YAP app for further information on our webinar series and speakers. You can also take some time to view some video features from our sponsors and exhibitors showcasing some of their products and services on the CHES BC page. A reminder that we have our CHES BC AGM on June 7th, 2021 at 1500 hours Pacific. Pre-registration is required to receive the invite link for the AGM through the link on the eBlast reminders that have been sent out. All attendees will be entered into the draw for some great prizes. For our keynote and education sessions, all participants will be muted. Please submit any questions you may have via the chat box. Session moderators will monitor the chat box and bring them forward after each presentation for the question and answer period. Presentations will be posted on the CHES BC website later this week, so you will have the opportunity to review them at a later date. All participants each day will be entered into the prize draw, so please ensure that you have logged on with your name. The winners will be contacted by CHES BC. This morning, we are privileged to have Dr. Marietta Berg as our keynote speaker. Marietta is a psychiatrist in Fraser Health and works as a physician quality lead of the Surrey hospitals in BC. She is a mother of 4, a grandmother of 3, and loves living in beautiful BC. Marietta is from Zimbabwe, then South Africa, and has made Canada her last stop. Her passion is stories, the ones people tell, struggle to tell, write down, and live. She believes the real healing is having our stories heard or witnessed. She is grateful for the opportunity to be our keynote speaker this morning and hopes to provide some comfort, some learnings, and some opportunity reflection. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Marietta Berg as our keynote speaker this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for honoring me with this request to spend some time with you. We're going to focus on you, how you're doing, how you can help yourself manage and cope even better. I'm going to invite you to have maybe a pen and paper, a tablet, a phone, because during the talk, I'm going to ask you to make some notes. This is our outline, but I actually would like to start by acknowledging you and what you do. I looked up CHES and I love your vision of creating patient-focused facilities. I realize that what you do and who you are is often invisible to the general public, and especially your contribution to managing this pandemic, even to all the healthcare workers and the healthcare recipients that benefit from your expertise, your energy, your efforts, and your time. This pandemic has taught us that facilities and specifically airflow for this pandemic will be such an important focus for the future, not only for healthcare facilities, but also all public buildings. So I want to start by thanking you for what you do. I'm going to invite you to join me in a brief mindfulness meditation. I'm going to ask you to sit up tall but relaxed, and we will start by grounding ourselves in our breath. Defocus your eyes or close them, and breathe slowly and evenly in and out through your nose. Allow your energy to settle by anchoring your attention to your breath. Watch the breath with a sense of loving awe. Breathe in and out, and feel the gentle rise and fall of the body as the body breathes itself. Let yourself drop into a state of being rather than doing. Right now, you're nowhere else. You're just here, present with your breath and with all of us on this call. As you watch your breath, of course, what will happen is that thoughts and feelings will arise. The mind is energy, and this is to be expected. Today, as you notice these thoughts and feelings popping up while you are trying to pay attention just to your breath, watch them as if from a distance. You are not your thoughts and feelings, but a witness to them. It can help to visualize them as clouds or bubbles. A thought or a feeling arises, it floats up into our awareness. If you leave it alone, it will float on by, or dissipate or burst. Stay anchored and grounded with your breath as you play with awareness of this process. Present with your breath, but aware of the thought clouds or thought bubbles or feelings that arise. Understanding that these thoughts and feelings are not solid. They're not fixed. They take shape, they break apart, they're continuously changing. They come and they go. For just a few quiet moments, I'm going to stop speaking just for a few breaths, and I'm inviting you to continue to focus on your breath and allow your thoughts and your feelings to come and go, gently bringing your attention back when you are distracted. When you are ready, become aware of your surroundings, the sounds in the room around you. Roll your shoulders, open your eyes, and bring your attention back to this room. Thank you for participating, and I hope that you were able to ground yourself and allow this brief moment of quietness. Our brains are noisy, always busy with the past, the future, to-do lists, worries, thoughts. A few moments of quiet calm is healthy, and it helps us build resilient minds. I'm going to talk about our emotional journey through this pandemic. We have not all had the same experience, and each of us has a different story. However, there may be similarities, and I want to start with my journey of providing psychological first aid and well-being support to my hospital and my community during this pandemic. In those first few scary days, I was feeling a bit dazed and lost, as I'm sure many of you were. I have worked in many different fields of medicine, from military medicine to palliative medicine, and most things in between. However, for more than a decade, I have now been a psychiatrist, so my other skills are rather rusty. I did not know how I could contribute to my hospital and my people, my community. And then I was alerted to the distress of our hospital housekeeping staff. There was a tug of war around personal protective equipment between our housekeepers and the unit staff. And my first supportive sessions was with housekeeping staff. They have been the backbone of our pandemic efforts, cleaning every room. We then requested sessions with all the other units, thinking that we were going to go there and talk about respectful workplace and being one team and being inclusive. However, we were flooded with requests, and it turns out that everyone was frightened. And what they wanted was to hear a calm voice reminding them how to cope with fear, how to stay grounded. This turned out to be my contribution to my hospital and community, and continues to be. So I invite you as I speak to consider your journey and your opportunities to contribute. Now, the red line shows the actual curve of COVID-19 cases in British Columbia since March of 2020. The blue cycles are why we're tired and exhausted, at least part of the reason. The pandemic caused large-scale disruption of our lives as humans. And those of us who worked through the pandemic had the additional stress of that. And of course, there is the chronic fight, flight, freeze response that we were stuck in. But there is another reason we are tired. It is human to change, but it is also human to resist and dislike change. This is because our brains and our bodies are wired to conserve energy, and change requires energy. We have to process new information. We have to make decisions, change behaviors, learn new skills. It's uncomfortable to change. And this past year or more, we have endured change upon change, cycles of adjusting and adapting. It has also been a year of multiple first-time experiences. Think about the first time you did anything, the first time you became a parent, first day on a new job, first day at school. First times are taxing. The reason I bring this up is because it is also human to want to get to a new normal as soon as possible in order to be comfortable again. Now, our tendency to create a new normal as quickly as possible and then not revisit it because we don't like change could be harmful to us at this time. So I'm going to get back to that. But what new normal habits did you start or develop during COVID that may not be serving you any longer? When I asked around my hospital, my colleague reported that during the first scary days of COVID, he watched the late night news. And he's still doing it a year and a half later, despite the disruption to his sleep. My family went gluten and dairy free and of course felt very deprived. And so we started to bake. But of course there's a law to baking. He who bakes shall eat and he who eats shall gain weight. And so we had to revisit that one and only bake now once a month or on special occasions. But first we will talk about our emotional journey. This is a busy slide and I apologize, but you start on the far left. In December, the news filtered out of China of a new virus, but we were all in denial. Personally, I was planning my spring break trip to Australia to see my grandchildren. It was at that time a them problem. Denial is healthy. It helps us to navigate an unpredictable world that is full of threat. But in March, the threat became real. We paid attention. Our survival brains kicked in. Our thinking brains went offline. And we faced a toilet paper and personal protective equipment panic. We struggled with fear and stress reactions. In British Columbia, our state went into a state of emergency and the world shut down around us. And we entered the sprint of staying informed. It was overwhelming, and many of us felt like a deer in the headlights. Then we adapted and we adjusted, and many measures became the new normal. Virtual care was accelerated, and it became the age of social media posts about making sourdough bread and decluttering your house. And those of us in healthcare who were still working looked on and longed for those quiet days at home. Dumbbells and hair color became the new toilet paper. And we felt a certain resignation and we settled into doing what was required and we longed for this to end. We naively thought it could not last long. We naively thought that we were enduring. We felt grief for the loss of our lives, the loss of normal. We had to tolerate moral distress, uncertainty. We felt isolated and exhausted. And then in the summer, we saw some anticipation. We saw the businesses open up. We took stock of our losses, and we started to fear that the first wave was a dress rehearsal. Little did we know. The summer, however, turned out to be quite a dismaying summer. I don't know if you remember, it was just bad news and bad air. The gender reveal parties in California and the smoke that fouled our air here in British Columbia. And some people slipped back into denial and they grasped the summer with both hands, which frustrated and frightened us in healthcare. As the winter set in, we were rather despondent and fed up. That was the phase that we were in. And some of us began to feel willful, no longer wanting to follow the rules. We needed some relief. It was not a great time to be fed up because we entered a second wave and a third wave simultaneously, the wave that not many people are talking about, which is the mental health and the substance use wave and our opiate deaths. As the winter set in, we had to whip our adrenals to performing some more, mostly with coffee, salt, sugar, alcohol. And by January 2021, we were tired but hopeful. We had a vaccine on the horizon. And then we hit the third wave, the worst of the three, and things started to unravel. People's behavior unraveled. Our world, the fabric of our world seemed to unravel. Shootings, knife attacks, disobeying the law, protests, parties in homes with 70 plus people. Now, as we enter another summer, we have so many mixed feelings. There is hope, certainly, the vaccine rollout, but there's also exhaustion, uncertainty, and grief. And I think we're starting to realize that there is no going back. The law of time is that it moves forward only. We realize that no one walks away unchanged or unscathed. Our world will not go back to the way it was. We are challenged to reimagine the world and hopefully a better one. I want to stop at this point, and if you have your pen and paper, just for a moment, I'd like you to think about your story. Jot down the people or the things that protected and supported you through this time. So that could be things like your home, your job, your family, the things and the people that supported you. Then, what are you proud of in terms of this pandemic year? But also, what do you want to hide from others? What are you not proud of that you wish that you had done differently? How did you deal with powerful emotions this year? Did you push them away? Did you talk about them? How did you deal with them? What are you grateful for? What was one huge loss, the biggest loss for you that you will remember as our world slowly returns to normal? And then what was one silver lining, one unexpected bonus? Thank you for participating. Let us not forget that it has been a large-scale survival threat. The physical threats include COVID itself, but also inactivity. Maybe not for many of you or for many of us, but certainly for many people. There is the decline of chronic health conditions or the development of new ones. Medication errors due to phone-in prescriptions, poor nutrition, too much takeout, increase in drug and alcohol use, and I have many patients who started this year homeless and are still homeless. So physical threats, but then social threats include the isolation, struggling to adjust to technology, no access to the usual places for social connection, such as gyms or clubhouses, churches, volunteering, group therapy, family. The emotional threats include anxiety, worry, fear, a loss of sense of control, a loss of an inner compass as the world changes around us. And of course, fatigue and stress, as we spoke about. The mental stress refers to worsening or new mental health conditions. We see a lot of people who are very, very anxious and developed OCD-like symptoms, become depressed. But even if you're not ill, a negative focus or a hopeless thinking, loss of drive or motivation, living with uncertainty is stressful. And the spiritual threats refer to a scary loss of our understanding of the world and how it works, our place in it. We need to give ourselves the grace to acknowledge the threats that we have faced and still face, because it also opens up an opportunity to be grateful, because each of our circumstances are different. And if we focus on gratitude, we find things to be grateful for. In the spirit of building wellness, when you're in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. So those new normal habits that I spoke about, what are you currently doing that may be making things worse? I'm going to go through some things. So screen time and Netflix, for example, the binge watching may be distracting. However, it's not necessarily all that good for your brain, especially because it may lead to too many late nights, too much inactivity. And actually, it doesn't restore the brain at all. So even though there's a place for distraction as a coping skill, it may be time to pay attention to and ramp up those healthy habits. Takeouts have become the norm. I don't know if you are doing more takeouts than usual, but perhaps it's time to cook at home again. Maybe get the whole family involved. It's time to check how much time you spend on your phone, because it is a thief of your time. And you could be spending that time on restorative habits, such as some gardening, a walk with a friend. Alcohol sales in British Columbia are up 40%. So there are 4 non-food groups that people seem to be relying on. And I've mentioned them: alcohol, salt, sugar, and caffeine. And they're not great for us in the long run, even though in the short term, they're probably okay. In the long run, we do have to invest in a healthier tomorrow. Get back to the basics. Drink water, eat our fruit and our brain food, such as nuts and fish. And if you have become very sedentary, and when I do my rounds in the hospital, I hear this a lot: I'm too tired to exercise, or my gym is closed. I want to remind you that the antidote for tired is to move, to be more active. It works. If you Google the benefits of regular exercise, you'll see it lowers blood pressure, it lowers sugar, it lowers cholesterol, it improves mood, it improves sleep. I can go on. It does not have to be all or nothing, though. So if you have found that you are engaging in some habits that constitute digging your hole deeper, perhaps you can challenge yourself. My personal challenge around exercise is I have to do something every day. But 5 minutes is good enough on a bad day. That's my minimum goal. And my desired goal is 30 to 60 minutes on a good day. We're also stuck in the mundaneness of work and home. And your brain may need something interesting and new to focus on, to cook a new meal, or try a puzzle, or learn a new skill, or drive and go and find a new view to look at. Change your house, move the furniture to follow the sun. Again, I have a question for you. I'm going to stop and ask you to write down some answers for yourself. What does survival look like for you? What made you feel frightened or afraid? Did you get sick? Did any family members get sick? What are you doing well? And what can you do better? I have heard people use the phrase, we're all in the same boat, but actually that's not true. We are in the same storm, but in different boats. So when you're in a small boat in a raging storm on the ocean, where do you invest your time and your energy? It is not the storm or the waves, because they are outside of your control. It is your boat, yourself, and the people in your boat with you. This is a concept called radical acceptance. And it is a skill, an in-the-moment skill, where it requires us to recognize problems or situations that are outside of our control and simply accepting them. Remember, accepting is not the same as condoning or liking or approving. It is accepting that they are outside of our control instead of railing and ranting or getting angry or upset. And we can simply let go of those feelings because it allows us to focus our energies on that which we can control. Now, I've been hearing a lot of that, a lot of blame about what the federal government did or didn't do right, what the provincial governments did or didn't do right, what the health authorities did or did not do right, etc., etc. And honestly, I think it's useful to recognize what we can control and not worry or invest energy or time in what we cannot control. So think again about those new normal habits. Life is all about balance. There is a place for activities that make the moment better, for those self-soothing things such as chocolate, Netflix, denial, avoidance, even alcohol. But this must be balanced with choices and activities that improve tomorrow. Self-compassion is partly an investment in a healthier you for tomorrow. So I'm going to stop again and ask you to think about how often you put your energy into things that you cannot control. How would it feel to simply let it go and focus your energy elsewhere? How is your balance going? Perhaps draw a teeter-totter and jot down all the things that are self-soothing that you're doing on the one end and all the things that you're doing to invest in your health in the other, and see how your balance is going. It helps to do a check-in with yourself. If you are not a person who's in the habit of emotional check-ins, then observe your behaviors or ask your family. Maybe you're more impatient or irritable. Maybe you're dropping your healthy habits. Maybe you're not sleeping well. Maybe you're drinking more alcohol than you would like to admit. If your thinking has become negative and you struggle to find things to be grateful for, then perhaps you're not doing so well. Most people, especially people who are in healthcare or in professions where doing goal-directedness, action orientation is the norm of the day, then it is necessary to learn how to balance that goal-directedness, that action focus, and balance it with emotion processing. Journaling is really helpful. The next time you bump up against something, a difficult situation that evokes powerful emotions, perhaps write down all the thoughts and the feelings, and then go back and examine every one and differentiate between facts and assessments of facts, because facts are different to assessment or judgments of facts. Facts rarely invoke the same kind of emotion that our judgments or assessments of facts do. The check-in is to figure out your own personal GPS location. I'll tell you a little story. My daughter, when she was 3 or 4, didn't know what GPS stood for. It was kind of new on the market, and she said it was going places smartly. And I kind of like that. I think it makes much more sense than its actual name. So it's your going places smartly coordinates. Any traveler knows that you need to know where you are in order to plot a route to your destination. Challenge yourself. How am I? What are my GPS coordinates? Am I digging still? What new habits have worn out their usefulness? How can I help myself? Well, you can start by acknowledging that we are all flawed. None of us are perfect. Expecting yourself to be anything other than flawed or imperfect is unkind, and it lacks compassion. It actually takes grace to accept our limitations, which then frees us up to reinvest. For example, I used to be a long distance walker. I completed many marathons and half marathons. I miss it. However, I now struggle a 30-minute sedate dog walk due to arthritis, which I have accepted. And I bought a bike, not yet an electric bike. That is for in 10 years' time. The bike has given me wings. And this summer, my partner and I are planning to do it 500 kilometers in total of outside biking. Last summer, we did 400. So accepting your limitations and being graceful about it actually gives you options. I'm going to stop again and ask you, in the different realms of your life, how are you doing? What are you doing that may be making things worse? What can you commit to make things better? Remember, you have to challenge yourself for only 1 week. You don't have to challenge yourself forever, 1 week at a time. So your tired brains needs 4 things plus 1. 4 plus 1. It starts by actually admitting that this is difficult, I'm exhausted, and I have reason to be. The world is a mess and a pretty scary place, and I am trying my best. I'm doing my best, and I can do better. I can honestly look at where I'm at and wisely choose one next step. Choose the one thing that may make the moment better, or today better, or tomorrow better. So gifting your brain what it needs. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, social connection. The 4 things, the 4 magic things. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, social connection. Plus 1, which is the interesting thing to focus on. A tired brain does not need nothing. It needs something new and interesting to focus on. That is, in fact, some of the research on burnout, is that when we reinvest our energy, but in such a way that we see outcomes, we see shifts, we know that we're making a difference, we are re-energized. We all need relief. Relief comes from letting go, from exhaling, from meeting a fundamental, deep-seated need. That same daughter always says relief is the best feeling in the world. And think about it. Relief is what you feel when you quench a thirst, when you rest a weary body or mind, when you feed your hunger, when you satisfy your need for movement, when you feel comforted, when you relieve pain. Relief is what you feel when something turns out okay and you can let go of your worries. When someone comes home safely or gets better after an illness. It's the feeling of reassurance and relaxation following release from anxiety or distress. So how on earth are we to obtain relief? We've been caught up in work and home. We have to keep doing this, and we may have exhausted our motivation, our creativity, and our energy. And the pandemic, frankly, the end is not quite in sight. I have some suggestions around this. We're all carrying huge, heavy emotions, and we tend to push them aside in order to function. So I suggest that you give yourself a small space every day just to connect with your feelings, because you can't let go of that which you are not aware of. Perhaps write about this year. It's your story. Perhaps at the dinner table, talk about the best and the worst parts of this year. Perhaps talk about what you have lost, but what you have gained, what has been challenging, and what has allowed you to grow, what has been positive. Some of the ways to let go of emotion is to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You may watch a sad movie and allow yourself to cry. It's an excuse. You may watch a funny movie and allow yourself to laugh. I always suggest that we deliberately push ourselves into discomfort physically, because the relief gives us more than relief from the stopping of the discomfort. So go for a run or a walk or a bike ride in the rain or the wind. Create physical discomfort, because it does create that feeling of well-being later. Fast, perhaps. It's recently been the holy month of Ramadan, and our Muslim friends and colleagues have been fasting. Perhaps we can fast for 1 day from sunup to sundown. Perhaps we can choose something to go without for a week, whether it's Netflix or chocolate or coffee, whatever your treat is, and then notice relief. Seek it, because it will not come by itself. So again, your notes. How can you challenge yourself in order to obtain some relief? I know this is a lot to remember, and I hope you're still able to focus. My slides will be available later. I want to talk a little bit about uncertainty, because these times are uncertain. We can't plan much ahead, so how do we cope? The inability to tolerate uncertainty is actually an attitude, and it leads to worry and anxiety. So it is useful to examine our own need for certainty in order to be aware of it and to address it. Thoughts such as, I can't cope without knowing, I have to be 100% certain, I need to know that things will work out. They're indications that we're not tolerating uncertainty well. So generally, humans do three things in response to uncertainty. We try to reduce it, we acknowledge it and we manage it, or we suppress it. So we try to reduce it by gathering information. Knowledge is power. Sometimes we postpone making a decision until it's more clear, like, are we going on a family holiday? Should I book a trip? We sometimes ask for advice, or we just do what we always do. We default to normal. Managing uncertainty means creating some what if then that, having reserves. So it's expecting uncertainty, but then managing and being prepared for it, weighing up the pros and cons. And suppressing it is to act as if it's not there and act as if we're certain, following our intuition, taking a gamble. So it's useful to challenge your need for uncertainty because it's not really possible to be certain about everything in life. And the need for certainty can sometimes hinder us. So do you tend to predict bad outcomes when things are uncertain? How often do those bad outcomes occur? And are there situations where uncertainty is a little bit more bearable because you expect it, because it's built in? And how do you tolerate that? So again, back to your notes, how do you tolerate uncertainty? I'm going to talk about resilience. Nobody promised us a disaster-free, a stress-free, an allergen-free life. Nobody did. Every generation has had its adversity, and resilience is the capacity to adapt successfully when there is adversity or risk. And in fact, resilience is not extraordinary. It is ordinary. Every one of us has resilience. But here's the key. It doesn't look the same in every person. Each of us is resilient in our own manner. Some people hang on by the tip of their fingernails, wait for this to pass, and then recover. Other people grow and thrive, and then there's everything in between. And here's the other thing. Everybody can improve their resilience. Also, you can be distressed and resilient at the same time. We can be vulnerable and powerful at the same time. Nobody walks away from adversity unchanged. We learn about ourselves and about what we consider priorities, what's important. So what we would like things, how we would like things to be different after COVID. For example, what does that mean for you? It could mean many people lost their jobs. So perhaps it could mean, well, I need to have 4 months of savings. Perhaps it's about where do I invest my time and energy? Perhaps it's about how often and how do I connect with family and friends? Perhaps it's about an understanding of what you need to be well. There are factors that contribute to how well we adapt to adversity. The first is actually concrete resources such as a home, a job, food on the table, water, social resources. And honestly, I'm so grateful to be living in Canada during this time. Also, being able to have social supports and use them. Cognitive flexibility, and I'm going to get back to that one. Focusing on what you can control versus what you can't control. Being open to emotions, all of them, the positive ones and the negative ones. That's that balance between action orientation and emotion processing. One of the most important things is actually living your value, having a passion that you are investing in. It helps to have resilient role models, and it also helps to keep fit. We're back to that old exercise thing. My residents in training always tell me, why don't you just tape yourself? Because I keep doing the same thing, talking about sleep, nutrition, exercise, social connection. They're the cornerstones of being healthy. So let's talk first about cognitive agility, as you see on the slide. That's the extent to which we are able to adjust our thinking processes. So it means quickly recognizing when you are encountering something that is not within your control, so that you can recognize the feelings of loss and unfairness, resentment, the urge to blame, the anger, and then reframing, let go of those emotions and reframe. So instead of focusing on what I cannot do, you focus on what I can do. From what I have lost, you change it to what do I still have? From I'm stuck without options to how can I be creative and fix a problem? Shifting our mindsets actually shifts our emotions. So cognitive agility. Emotion regulation is the extent to which we remain calm. Cool, calm, and collected. So every emotion, so events activate thoughts, thoughts activate emotions, and emotions urge us to behave in a certain way. So if I feel lethargic, the action urge of that emotion is to lie down. The problem is sometimes our emotion action urges are counterproductive. If I go lie down, I prolong the feeling of feeling lethargic. Whereas if I did the one small thing, I give myself a different experience. I experience being productive. So it's useful to pause and be curious about what's going on for you. And if you're having powerful emotions, especially about other people, it's useful to think, well, hang on, they're also human. And I don't really know what their intention was. I only know how their behavior or their words impacted me. So emotion regulation. Self-compassion is the next one. So self-compassion is being kind. Now, we're all wired with a negativity bias. And that is a safety feature, actually. So positive and negative experience, if they're of the same intensity, the negative ones will impact us more and they will last longer. However, this backfires when we end up with negative self-talk. So if you're interested in self-compassion, there's a great website called selfcompassion.org. And Kristen Neff is one of the gurus. I've put a resource page at the end of my slides, and you'll find it there. So self-compassion has 3 steps. The first step is accepting that we are flawed and not expecting perfection. The second step is placing any criticism we have of ourselves in context. I'm not the first dad to miss my child's concert. I'm not the first person to miss a deadline. I'm not the first physician or first engineer or architect to miss a key feature. I'm not the first mom to yell at my kids. You put it in context of the bigger human picture. And the last is to proceed mindfully. Now, mindfulness is not meditation in this case. It is noticing when you're having a tough time and turning towards the experience so that you can manage it. So that is self-compassion. Optimism is hopefulness about the future. And it has become challenging to be optimistic because we live with uncertainty and it really feels like the world is unraveling a bit, doesn't it? We tend to awfulize or catastrophize. And so again, we spoke about writing down those feelings and thoughts when you bump up against something difficult, and then making sure that you differentiate between facts and feelings. The last is self-efficacy, and it's the extent to which we feel that we have control or personal agency. So it's a constant reframe from, it's your own personal inventory from I can to I can't, right? So draw 2 circles. The inner circle is all the things you can control. The next circle is the things you can influence. And on the outside are the things that are totally outside of your control. The next concept that's not actually on here is a concept of inoculation or stealing. So we have all survived and endured difficult situations: divorce, immigration, loss of a loved one, illness, natural disasters, war. Inoculation makes us tougher. It makes us able to cope and adjust, more certain in our ability to do so. So it's useful to think when you hit a difficult situation, what else have I done previously that was difficult, and how did I cope with that? So it's important to find meaning in every day. Sometimes I have to constantly remind myself, all you have to do is take a deep breath and be present for this next meeting, or be present for this next task, or be present for this next patient. So, and it really helps if we remind ourselves constantly of our purpose. The bounce framework addresses some of these principles. And once you have scored yourself, perhaps celebrate the areas that you are doing well in and focus on how you can increase your resilience in the areas that you struggle. So I'm going to ask you to do it. So on your little piece of paper, the first is belief, a belief or sense of agency. And you score yourself from 0 to 10. Just write down a number. Don't overthink it. The O is optimism. That's that future-focused thinking, the hopefulness, 0 to 10. The U is self-awareness or understanding around your own strengths, your own limitations, your values, your motivations. The N is networks, not just having them, but using them. How well do you use your networks? The C is contribution to others, and I can honestly tell you, finding a way to contribute has boosted my resilience beyond my own imagining, and I'm pretty sure that you've had the same experience. So the C is contribution. And the last is sustaining energy and enthusiasm, and frankly, at this point, I'm kind of scoring a little low on that. I'm sure many people are. So in summary, challenge yourself. How am I? What are my GPS coordinates? Am I digging still? What new normal habits have worn out their helpfulness? How can I help myself? I'm going to remind you of all the C's. The first one is calm yourself. Calm your nervous system with radical acceptance, with mindfulness meditation, with exercise, with grounding skills. The second is care for yourself. Seek those balances between self-soothing and compassion. The next is cry or laugh. Find ways to release those powerful emotions. Push yourself into physical discomfort to obtain the relief that will not come by itself. Connect with others all day long. Do 5-minute favors. Smile at people, greet people, people that you don't know. Make eye contact. Focus on what you can control and let go of the rest. You do not have headspace or energy left for things that are outside of your control, if you are like me. And lastly, just breathe and remind yourself, just this task. I have to be present for this meeting, this task, this conversation, in my case, this patient. And then ask yourself, what one thing did I do to help me or my colleagues or someone else today? So this is my personal success checklist. Did you show up today? Well, you all did show up here. Thank you. Did you take time to ensure that you are present? Well, I hope you did. If you answered my questions, you did. Those are for you. Did you care for yourself in some way today? Did you make a difference today to someone, anyone? Did every person you encounter receive something positive from you today? I want to share a gratitude story to end with. I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren, as you know. One of my daughters lives in the UK and one in Australia. And as you can imagine, I had to cancel my travel plans when COVID hit. I used to cope with my longing for them and my missing them by planning the next family get-together before the last one has ended. It was a way to kind of keep me managing, keep me coping. And of course, we live in uncertain times and there are no travel plans. However, there was a silver lining that the pandemic gifted me in that my 2 youngest adult children and their partners were at home this year. They lived and played at home, and we had endless dinners and games and laughs and talks and walks, precious moments. They felt like a gift. That's what I will remember from this pandemic year. What are you grateful for? Thank you for listening. And I'm hoping that in the chat box, you'll write down one thing that you will take away from this conversation today. And then, of course, we have just a few minutes for some questions.
Thank you very much, Marietta, for your talk today. It was very, very enlightening. I know that I look at the uncertainty and the resiliency as key positive moments to try to work around them, try to find a resolve for all those things. And it's very, very, very important and very, very neat to figure out. I'm looking at the chat to see if anybody has any questions right now. And I don't really see a lot.
At the moment, I think people are typing in my request, which is what will you take away from today? So being present, taking care of yourself in a world where you constantly take care of others, letting go of things that you can't control, being grateful for your support networks, neighborhoods coming together to bang the pots, not having the answer to everything. Yep, that is okay. Well, it is what it is, right? Radical acceptance. Taking time to appreciate the little things and putting a positive side of things, being grateful for your community.
I do have one question that you're going to ask. Are you better prepared for the next emergent event as a community healthcare or otherwise, given the fact that what we've done in the past year or so?
I think so. I sincerely hope that I do not have to live through another one. I kind of feel like this is this was not on my bucket list, and it's been ticked anyway. But I think that there are a lot of lessons learned around how to cope with things. You know what the biggest thing for me would be is find a purpose and find it quickly and early. Mm. Because I think that when you have a purpose that you can hold on to, it helps you through this. So lots of people are talking about being present in the moment. And it's a constant challenge. I have to do it every minute, every hour sometimes. Small positives for at least one person, absolutely tolerating uncertainty, being mindful. Park the phone, please park the phone. It's robbing you of your time, and time is a gift. Reflecting on the habits gained and lost, reminder of the positives. How can I feel like I have to be perfect and fill every minute of the workday? Yeah, well, you're not perfect.
There's another question that came up, sorry. How can I cope with perfection and feel like I need to fill every minute of my workday with high quality output while working from home?
I think you have to start with radical acceptance and with some grace and some self-compassion, which is that you are not perfect and you cannot expect that from yourself. So it's kind of writing down, what do you expect from yourself? And would you expect that from anyone else? Is that reasonable? Would you expect that from a loved one? And I want to tell you, it helps to change the way you view time. So, you know, in our Western world, we view time as a commodity. We waste time, we spend time, we invest time. But time is actually not a commodity. It is a gift, because you only get a certain number of breaths and then you die. I'm so sorry to tell you. So if you change your view as time as a gift, then there is no such thing as a waste of time. Then you are a little bit more careful about how you spend your time. I want to tell you a brief story, and I have a few minutes. So I just want to tell you a brief story. Some years ago, I went back to South Africa, and my father had died the year that I moved here. So I never went to his gravesite other than the burial. And I went to see his gravesite, and we left there feeling very, very sad, because you know how you lose one person, you grieve for everybody that you've ever lost. And I wanted to take a picture of the flamingos on the lake before we left that little town where he is buried. And so I was sitting on this jetty out into the water, holding my phone camera, trying to take a picture of the flamingos. And my son came up behind me and enveloped me in a hug. And my initial response was to actually be irritated with him, because he was wobbling my hand while I'm trying to take a picture. And then I realized, wait a minute. He's offering you comfort and you feel sad. So I put down my phone and I allowed him to comfort me. And it was a precious, precious moment. And I never did get my picture of the flamingos, and it doesn't matter, because I was present for that moment. So when you drive yourself to make every moment productive, when you drive yourself to be perfect, you are robbing yourself, because those special moments happen in quiet times. You won't notice them if you're too busy. So I hope that answers your question. Maybe think of time as a gift rather than a commodity, and allow yourself to sometimes just sit and enjoy the gift of time. And self-compassion where you don't expect perfection is really, really helpful.
I'm looking, excuse me, I'm looking through some of the notes, and everybody has a lot of little snippets on their lives, small positives, taking time to be mindful, lots of stuff. And it really resonates with what you've said to everybody in here. So I think it's been a really good session. Really good. I think as well timed, especially with what we're going on in the world right now. So
I'm delighted. I'm so grateful if what I have done has helped you, because it helps me. It's my purpose, right? That's what built my resilience. And I'm sure that you will be listening to people who lived their purpose during this pandemic. And I'm sure that living your purpose built your resilience. Yeah, I think as professionals, our biggest challenge is really to be kind to ourselves, right? Being kind to yourself isn't slacking at all.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, I hope that the rest of your conference goes very well, and I want to thank you again for what you do, because I think it's invisible and I'm not sure that you get thanked.
Well, thank you very much. On behalf of the CHES BC, we thank you for your time and for your opening address. It's been really, really good. And CHES BC will be sending you a gift as a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Marietta. Appreciate it a lot.